Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and today we're back here with the My Team Career Mode series, and it is qualifying for the Saudi Arabian GP weekend, an absolutely pivotal quali. That of course is with it being the season finale race weekend. Quickly sort out some activities. What we're looking at, we'll have an aero team building, some advertisement and promotion. Oh, definitely look at that. That's a very helpful one there. And we'll leave the durability department focus for a bit later. I know we have a high cash balance. That's, of course, because we are looking at being able to maybe go to someone different next season. Of course, in the driver market, you can now see we are looking at the likes of Norris and Charles Leclerc. They're rated at 15 million. Certainly not cheap, to say the least. So what we're hoping to do is to be able to get maybe one of those guys. Certainly plenty of other drivers who can maybe go for Verstappen there, and then the likes of Perez, of course, for fighting him in the championship. Maybe Ricardo, Sainz, Gasly, and so on. But I think we'll be looking at a different teammate for next season. In terms of the standings, though, we are back at the top with a 6-point lead heading into Jeddah for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. That's ahead of Checo Perez. That was with our win and the fastest lap last time out at Mexico. Really great drive for ourselves. It would have been a 1-2 for the team after locking out the front row in qualifying. Yuki then took grid penalties, got up to P2 towards the end of the race, then bottled it in the middle sector. He had 2 laps to go after that, and he bottled it in the middle sector. Dropped down to P8 and didn't take that many points at all. That left the door open for Lewis Hamilton to come through and take his 2nd consecutive P2, his 4th consecutive podium. What a run of form for him. But of course, for Lewis there, getting that P2 last time out does really help him in the battle against Verstappen. Verstappen only managed P5 and sits on 103 points. So in terms of the battle for 3rd, Verstappen with a lot of work to do this weekend if he wants to finish ahead of Lewis. But his teammate Checo Perez is locked right in the battle with ourselves. Of course, the P3 last time out, maybe not as much as he was hoping for from the front row of the grid alongside ourselves. But he's sort of a damage limitation race for him. P3 means that he's just 6 points behind, and it's all to play for into the Saudi Arabian GP. Of course, that being this race weekend. Bottas is going to be sat there in P6 at the end of the season. P5 at the end of the season. Let's forget about that. It is P5 at the end of the season. He could be sat there in... Let me think about it. In fact, he could be sat there in P4. He could get past Max Verstappen, the gap, of course, being 21 points, but it's pretty much looking certain that Bottas, after that disappointing P6 last time out, will be finishing there in the championship. Lando Norris is, I was thinking about it, but yep, he is too far behind. 30 points behind. He's going to be looking to retain the lead on the rest of the field there, of course. He, with a great P4 last time out, is looking strong for that position in the standings. He's closely followed by Lance Stroll and then Charles Leclerc. Those two couldn't score points. And in fact, though, the gap from Norris to Stroll is 9 points. Stroll then has a 3-point lead over Leclerc. So Norris is looking very, very strong for that position come the end of this race weekend, of course, the season finale. I certainly wouldn't rule Lance Stroll potentially out of a decent position too in his AlphaTauri. Vettel couldn't make it to the end of the Grand Prix, of course, announcing his retirement, then had a mechanical failure, the car giving up on him like he's giving up on F1. That sounds a bit sad. But 7 points behind Charles Leclerc, quite a bit of work for him to do, try and get further up the order. However, he'll be defending from Carlos Sainz, who's on the exact same amount of points as a gaggle of cars, separated by just 2 points here. It's Daniel Ricciardo and Pierre Gasly then on 32, those two looking to climb up the order, and then my teammate Yuki on 31, who really needs to capitalise on a strong car this weekend. Then, of course, Fernando Alonso still in the mix there, 3 points behind after a single point last time out. He's ahead of Giovinazzi, who scored. So really all to play for down the field, of course. A championship fight. Ourselves versus Checo. Then Hamilton versus Verstappen for P3. Can Bottas have an absolute miracle to get into the top 4? And then, of course, Lando Norris, can he fend off from the likes of Stroll and Leclerc? And what about the battle further back between Vettel, Sainz, Ricciardo, Gasly and Tsunoda? Certainly all to play for in the Constructors. Red Bull have won it. They've done it. We, though, are still in a battle with Mercedes. The question is, can we take P2 by the end of this season? That is still yet to be decided. The battle for P4 still raging on. It's McLaren ahead of AlphaTauri and now a struggling Ferrari team. Can Ferrari and AlphaTauri fight back at McLaren for P4? That is going to be decided in the race, but of course we're going to get a taste for that in qualifying. And then, of course, Aston Martin and Alpine separated by 5 points. Quite difficult to reverse that for those teams, of course, but still could change. That's everything in terms of last weekend. In terms of the strategy and in terms of the components, we can get a free ICE. Well, it's not really free, is it? Because we took the good penalties earlier on, but we got a fresh ICE, MGUK, MGUH, a very minimally used turbo energy store. We're then going to get a free turbocharger and then a fresh CE. So plenty of fresh, different engine components coming in for this weekend. We are top of the R&D chart at the moment. We've flown up there, I've got to say. Having a little look at strategies of what we can bring in, I think we're going to leave it a little bit. We have got some upgrades coming in. We've got an ultimate, a major, and 2 minors. So head to the durability. Gain experience, lose durability, morale. And they want, so you want Yuki at a recurring meeting. Conflicts, a couple of other items on the calendar. A lot of demands on their time, but it's vital that we have their input to aid our design. I'm sorry, Yuki, but seeing as we're not keeping you for next season, I have to think about the team. Sounds a bit savage. I don't really have a choice. It's got to be the option, hasn't it? Okay. So, if we have a little look at what we've got inside of powertrain department, engine power's looking good. If we could maybe get that major energy recovery system upgrade, that'd be great. And we also do want to get maybe some durability upgrades in, so just sort of spreading it across the field. We do need some more R&D. Valve timing is in, aero team building completed. Let's head to the 8th. Let's see, MGUH is in. What was that, MGUK? I don't know. We've got a durability upgrade in, and we've got some more R&D in the bank. Oh, thank you very much, Ferrari, with the valve timing upgrade. That is very well timed, I have to say. And they're top of the engine standings at the moment. We want to get another upgrade in. A bit more power at a track that requires quite a bit of power. That's what we're getting in for Jeddah with another power unit upgrade. Lose focus, 50% off. Gain focus, 10% off. But we need the good result this weekend, so I think it has to be that. We need a really, really good result this weekend, and I know R&D is important for next season, but we want to finish higher up in the championship, and that's, of course, going to boost us in the long run. The bearings are in. Let's have a little look. 15th. More R&D is in. Let's have a little look. We've still got 3 majors and an ultimate upgrade to come in, so we're looking pretty strong. And departments, I do fancy a look at this one. Get the minor DRS upgrading if we wanted to. What do we got in the chassis? Don't need to do any of that. The powertrain wise, we are already looking pretty strong in that. I think we do need something in durability. That's a little bit too expensive at the moment. 943. I do want to sort out the electrical system though. But we are going to need more. And we can't rush any of these upgrades. We're going to leave that then. We can't get any of those durability upgrades in before Jeddah. I want a bit more of a boost before Jeddah. Let me have a little think. What is that we can get in? We could think we'll go with another aero upgrade. One off those. Let's go with another DRS upgrade. Let's rush it. It's a bit of a risk. Likely that'll fail, but we need these upgrades in. Past the season break we go. Let's just pour in a little bit of a durability department focus. And the Halo has failed. That is very annoying. Doubt we're going to be able to get that back in.
Any redevelopments will need to be ordered from the R&D screen.
Oh, but we don't have enough R&D. Okay, that is very annoying because that was a major. Rear downforce upgrade, that was going to boost us for this weekend. And we do get enough R&D, but is it going to be too late? It is going to be pushing it. I know, Andre, you don't need to tell me about rivalries. And we're going to miss out. We are going to miss out on being able to get that upgrade. How annoying. I mean, we could actually rush another upgrade. Now, that's a risk. But if we get more R&D, we can rush another upgrade. Let's see. Give us more R&D. Oh! Gain experience 10% off ECU or gain R&D. Well, I quite like the R&D.
You handled it well. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I need the R&D. I need the R&D, guys. Because now we can... Oh, that's not going to be in time, is it? No, there's that. So, let's have a look at what we got here. We can rush these. Is there like a upgrade around this area? Well, I wouldn't be able to get that in. We don't need another brakes upgrade. Alright, let's try and bring in... Let's have this upgrade. Rush that, see if we can get that in. And then... Oh, we failed with the rotor speed. That won't be in time. So instead of that, let's try... rushing that. This is a massive risk before Jeddah to waste potentially quite a chunk of R&D. We need to get the DRS in. Yes, we do. That's helpful. We also want the suspension geometry. That is going to be pivotal. Yes, that's a big upgrade. Let's see. We've failed one. We did get the vortex generators, and that puts us at the top of the standings in the R&D by a lot. I've got to say there. That is pretty fantastic for ourselves. We'll just get that one sorted in terms of getting that upgrade sorted. But look at the lead we have in the chassis department, of course. The massive lead there. We are very, very strong. And then aero. To be honest, we're not looking too bad there either. You can see we are just behind Red Bull. Powertrain maybe not as good. But of course, we're fourth. Once we've got these upgrades in, we'll be pretty strong. The worry is durability, though, because if the car can't make the Grand Prix this weekend, then that could pretty much be the season over, in a sense. In terms of the driver market, still 15 odd mil for those guys. Just having a little think about departments. That would cost us 5 mil. Okay, we're going to invest in that. Reason being that they might want Spec 2 durability, and I don't want to lose someone because of a low durability. In terms of that department, yes, I know I've got a high cash balance, but there we go. We've got that upgrade heading in. That will be, of course, hopefully in before we have the contract renewals, but that's pretty much it for the R&D. We are really looking strong at the top of the order there. And Ferrari and McLaren right onto the back of Red Bull and Mercedes, so that's going to be very interesting this weekend. Sorted out the car, had a little bit of chat about the corporate, so I do believe now it's time to go to the R&D graph. Well, looking at this R&D graph, it is, pretty insane, I've got to say. The amount of upgrades we've piled in for Jeddah is madness. It really, really is. We're close to maxing out in the chassis department. We're getting there in aero, and of course, slowly getting there in powertrain. But look at that lead we have over Red Bull and Mercedes. We have the best car out of the whole field by a very long way. I've got to say, that's a ridiculous lead we have in the R&D. I don't exactly know how it's happened. It's as if the other teams have just stalled, to say the least. But there you have it. That is ourselves right at the top of the pack. Looking further down, Red Bull slightly ahead of Mercedes. Nothing to separate those two. It really is going to just come down to the better drivers on the day. In terms of Ferrari and McLaren, Ferrari looked a little bit weak last time out at Mexico, but they are now jumping back ahead of the papaya orange of McLaren. And they're right there with Red Bull and Mercedes, potentially a tenth or two off, gotta say. But really, Ferrari, they could definitely be a force to be reckoned with this weekend in fighting for a podium, of course, because the gap to Red Bull and Mercedes on a good day. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz are going to be getting into the mix for the top 5 and so on there, because the gap pretty small there, and the gap back to McLaren again is pretty small. It's a very interesting R&D graph at the moment. So it's ourselves massively ahead of Red Bull and Mercedes. Those two are together, and then the gaps to Ferrari and McLaren aren't really that big at all, just a couple of tenths in those gaps. Looking a bit further down the field, there is quite a chunky gap to Alpine, not much bigger than it was last weekend. In fact, might even be a little bit smaller. Alpine, though, haven't made loads of upgrades into this weekend, but do remain near the top of the rest of the midfield fight. But Aston Martin have flown back up a little bit, got plenty of upgrades in for Mexico, a few more in for Jeddah, and that means that they are right there with Alpine, and in fact just ahead. That will come down to the drivers, though, and that could certainly be an interesting battle. Then a little bit of a gap back to AlphaTauri, and if we cast our minds back to Bahrain, heading into Bahrain, AlphaTauri had the 5th best car on the grid. Then we sort of head to, let's look at round number 6. AlphaTauri, by that point, were pretty much with Aston Martin, so I can't really tell whether they're ahead or not, but they're certainly not 5th, they're about 6th or 7th. Now, they're 8th, and they really are dropping down. You can see the gap to Alpine and Aston Martin is quite big, so it's going to be difficult for Gasly and Stroll to get a good result, because that's quite a big gap there, I've got to say, compared to what it was before. Could be a difficult weekend for those guys at AlphaTauri. The gap back from AlphaTauri to Alfa Romeo, though, that is pretty small, I've got to say. Alfa Romeo's Kimi Räikkönen and Antonio Giovinazzi, they are going to really be fighting that AlphaTauri team this weekend. That gap is not that big, so they could really get into the mix. And the gap back to Williams and Haas is not that big at all either. The gap back from Alfa to Williams, fairly decently sized, but still AlphaTauri very close to Alfa Romeo. Williams just a bit behind Alfa Romeo compared to what they were before, of course. If you look back to the likes of France, they were a long way behind. Haas are a little bit off Williams, struggling to keep up with Williams, who have made some good improvements, but those gaps are really closing at the bottom of the field. But a summary of that, we have a massive lead heading into this week, and it's then Red Bull, Mercedes, small gap back to Ferrari, and then a little small gap back to McLaren. Gaggle of cars there fighting for position. Bit further back, it is Aston Martin and Alpine pretty much side by side. Small gap back to AlphaTauri, who are closely followed by Alfa Romeo. It's then a small gap to Williams and Haas compared to what it was before. So very interesting in the R&D, and as you'd expect, totally dry, of course, with the race at night in terms of qualifying. It will be night time when we reach Q3. It should be plenty of fun. So before we get into qualifying, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But it's time for the last qualifying of Season 2. Welcome to the final Q1 session of My Team Career Mode Season 2, and it is pretty bright at the moment in Jeddah, still sunny. That sun is about to descend and we're about to head into darkness in about 15 to 30 minutes. So Q2 and 3 should be in the dark, but Q1 is going to be under the bright sun, 28-degree air temperature here today, so quite warm. And because we've got so much more pace than other cars this weekend, the plan is just get out on track on the softs, and we should be able to put a decent banker in Q1 and then sit back and relax. So that is exactly the plan. First lap, and yellow flags are out, and Alfa Romeo off track. And you don't see AI mistakes in qualifying, and that is him out the session. It must be a mechanical failure. What a shock that is, I've got to say. Kimi is out of the session. Yellow flags there. Now we've got to concentrate on beginning our first lap of the session. That is pretty surprising, to say the least. So Kimi is out. Yellow flags once again. We actually had Charles Leclerc retiring in the season finale in season 1. I can't exactly see who's going slowly because I've got to concentrate on the Esther section as we have a massive slide there, and that's an Alpine going slowly. Is that Alonso or Esteban Ocon? Fernando Alonso out the session too. That's 2 mechanical failures. What a shame for these guys in qualifying. So that is Kimi Raikkonen and Fernando Alonso out of qualifying, and there's more. And I wonder who that's for. Is that for an Aston Martin or something? Not entirely sure. That's my guess at the moment. No, that was just yellow flags for the cars that are being cleared. Okay, so Fernando Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen, 2 of the older drivers in F1, are both out, clearly because of mechanical failures. We are running very nicely so far this lap, and then we are making a mistake there. We did have that big slide in Sector 1. I can certainly do a lot better than this, and really, with low tyre wear around here, it doesn't really matter how many laps you do, and there's another yellow flag. What is that going to be for? Who is that going to be for? Why is that yellow flag out? I think that is an Aston Martin, this time going very slowly down the main straight. Hopefully it's not Seb Vettel, for his sake, of course. We are pretty slow this lap. We can go a lot quicker than that. And it is Seb Vettel, his last qualifying session before retirement. And Seb Vettel with a mechanical failure. What a shame for him. And there's another yellow flag here. I don't really know if that's for him or not. And we've now gone and clipped the wall. That's not going to help us. We're going to reduce some downforce here. I'm struggling to concentrate on our lap at the moment by the fact that we're having all these people having disasters around us. A bit of a warning there, just trying to carry the car through nicely. And now it seems a bit of peace. No one is having a mechanical failure, and we can just drive off into the sunset in a sense. Purple in Sector 1. We haven't really taken any front wing damage from that little knock that we had, and now we can continue through Sector 2. That sounds pretty nice, despite a bit of a mistake in Sector 1. We are going pretty nicely, so already losing 3 cars, it's not going to make it that difficult to get out of Q1. Here is Valtteri Bottas. Wow, thank you, Valtteri, for finally letting me through there, but that has cost us a bit. We're still going quicker than we did last lap, and this should be enough to put us right towards the top of the standings. Hopefully, maybe we can get both the cars this weekend into the front 2 roads, I would definitely say, especially with how strong the car is. Yuki should be right up there. We're going to go over the line, and that is the fastest lap. Exactly what we wanted. Not distracted by anything. Bit weird that Yuki hasn't gone out yet. That is very, very weird. Hopefully it isn't anything sinister like we've seen so far, but Leclerc and Sainz looking strong. That's P2 and 3, and we're going to return to the pits to see what has happened in this extremely mad Q1 session so far. Plenty of disasters for drivers. Let's have a little analysis of them. With around about 6.5 minutes in the session, we're sat in our garage as the sun begins to set further. Who hasn't set a lap time? Okay, 4 drivers and 5 drivers haven't set a lap time. And my teammate Yuki is one of them. We've also got Lance Stroll, so I'm guessing those guys have mechanical failures. We'll have to wait and see, but what a shame. I mean, let's debrief these 5. Seb Vettel, mechanical failure for him. He will not make it through, of course. No, none of these guys can because of mechanical failure. So Seb Vettel with mechanical failure. Real shame for him in his last quali in F1 before retirement. Kimi Raikkonen pretty unlucky there. P19 when Alfa Romeo is starting to look pretty decent here today. Fernando Alonso would have been looking to help his team out to get some decent points today. He's down there in P20, of course, hasn't put a time on the board with a mechanical failure. He's joined by Lance Stroll, who's going to be really frustrated in a fantastic position in the championship, but he's probably going to struggle to stay there, starting from towards the back of the grid. And then my teammate Yuki Tsunoda. We have a really good car this weekend, to say the least. An absolutely fantastic car. The best we've had all season. And then he has a mechanical issue. I mean, that's the problem with the reliability, but really weird, because you don't really see AI or yourself having mechanical failures in quali. So I don't know really why it's on the last qualifying session of the season. We have not just 1, not just 2, not just 3, not just 4, but 5 mechanical failures. And that does, of course, mean that only one more person is going to get sent out of this session. Looking towards the top of the order, we are quickest ahead of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Ferrari looking fantastic once again. They are flying to some good results this weekend. So that's Charles ahead of Carlos. We, though, have a pretty comfortable lead, as you'd expect, in the fastest car on the grid. And I keep saying it, but I can't help it. I can't help it. But, of course, the Ferrari's looking really great this weekend. Charles and Carlos separated by a hundredth. Those two looking fantastically strong. Then the Red Bulls, it's Verstappen, who is quicker than Checo Perez at the moment. The team might want to swap that around for obvious championship reasons when it gets further along. Sometimes you've got to take team orders into account, but of course, Verstappen slightly quicker than Checo. The Red Bulls still looking stronger than the Mercs this race weekend. That is Lewis Hamilton just behind Checo Perez, actually, but his teammate down there in P9 with a pretty poor lap in Q1. Still, though, plenty of time to improve, and they are very safe, I've got to say, to go through to Q2. Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo, of course, P7 and P8 in the order. Those two at McLaren, they have got a lot of work to do this weekend. They've got to stay ahead of AlphaTauri. They've got to outscore them or not lose many points. And similarly with Ferrari, so they want to be a bit higher up to fight with Ferrari. But as always, Norris ahead of Ricciardo. Ricciardo not too far behind today. Then the two Frenchmen sticking together there. It is Pierre Gasly ahead of Esteban Ocon. Gasly just off the back of the top 9, which features a lot of faster cars. So he's doing fantastically well to be 3/10 off a Mercedes in that pretty rubbish AlphaTauri at the moment. So yeah, not too great for him. Then Esteban Ocon, and he's followed by Robert Schwartzman. So Ocon's safe, going well in his Alpine, the only Alpine representative in this one. So looking further down the order, it's Schwartzman, Giovinazzi, Russell, Schumacher, Latifi and Mazepin. All these guys are probably going to want to go again. Schwartzman, really great if he can get through, probably will, but P12 on a flyer right now. I would certainly not be surprised if Schwartzman get a decent quali result here today. That's really confidence boosting for him into next season and might convince Aston Martin to keep him at the team. Giovinazzi will be looking for a great result in that strengthening Alfa Romeo. P13 at the moment for him. He'll be looking to stay there. Then looking further down the order, this is where the real battle is to get through to the next part of quali. Russell with a fantastic lap, only 2/10 off Giovinazzi's time as Schwartzman improves a little bit there. He is 6/10 ahead of Schumacher, so pretty safe in this one for George Russell. Mick Schumacher P15 ahead of Nicholas Latifi and Nikita Mazepin. Mazepin is in the drop zone, so it'll be Latifi, Mazepin and Schumacher really trying to improve their times to get through. Let's have a look at the results then of Q1. Straight away, I would like to focus on this. Lance Stroll with a 5-place grid penalty. It was not a mechanical failure, clearly for him, unlike some others. I think he might have been going for a component change or something like that. So he's taken a 5-place grid penalty and will drop a bit further down the order. Question is, will anyone else join him? But looking at the top of the standings, ourselves, of course, head of the two Ferraris, both Red Bulls, a Merc, two McLarens and a Mercedes. Same top 11, actually, to be exact there when having a look at it. But of course, as I've said, Ferrari looking strong this weekend. Red Bull just a bit behind there, rebelling against Mercedes dominance. Now I can get that into a sentence there, of course. Mercedes P6 and P9 can't retain their Constructors' Championships titles. That did, of course, get last season, I do believe. But still looking for something decent this weekend, but don't really have the pace as Red Bull. McLaren don't have the pace as a very quick Ferrari duo. But Gasly and Ocon staying P10 and 11. That's the two Frenchmen. Ocon not too far off Gasly. I don't know whether he went again or not, but solid work in that Alpine, gaining more confidence by the minute. Then P12, Lance Stroll for AlphaTauri. He's taking a 5-place grid penalty. I'm sure some others will be taking component changes into this weekend, but managed to get out when the pressure was on to perform with just one run left in quali. He managed to do exactly that. P12, and he is through to Q2, which is pivotal for AlphaTauri. They need both drivers through to be able to fight in the Constructors' Championship, in the race, of course, with McLaren and Ferrari, but it could be a difficult one with that 5-place grid drop for Lance. Heading a bit further down the order then, Robert Schwartzman makes it through out of Q1. Real confidence boost for him. Do believe that'll be the only Alfa Romeo through, which certainly has to be quite positive, to say the least, of course. Robert has struggled in that car a bit this season. Only 2/10 off Lance Stroll. I know they both got low focus, but really good work from Robert. Great to see him through. He is joined by Antonio Giovinazzi in his Alfa Romeo. No surprises that he is through, but to be honest, that lap wasn't really as good as maybe you would have hoped. Maybe would have wanted a bit better, but he is through, and that's the pivotal thing. Through in that Alfa Romeo, maybe thinking that he could get another point before the end of the season to have a friend to his solitary point he got on the board from Hungary. Then P15 is George Russell, Mr. Saturday, performing again ahead of his teammate and both Hassers. The question is, who else is joining him? Because, of course, with Lance Stroll being able to go for a lap, it does mean that two of the drivers, two of the Williams or Haas drivers are going to end up going out of qualifying. So Mr. Saturday is through, and he's joined by Mick Schumacher. You'll love to see it. What a great lap in the Haas. Great to have a Williams and a Haas through to Q2, of course. George Russell there, just off the back of Giovinazzi. Then, of course, Mick Schumacher just off the back of Russell. So by about 3/10, but still Haas is about 3/10 slower. So great lap from Mr. Saturday and, of course, the German Mick Schumacher. Those two are through. Great to see them through. They'll struggle to really compete for anything in Q2, but it'll be nice to see them there. Then we do lose, unsurprisingly, really, if you were to pick two, it would probably be Latifi and Mazepin, but that was a really decent lap from Nicholas Latifi. Only a 10th and a little bit off Mick Schumacher, but P17, still a very solid position to start form in the race. He'll certainly be looking to defend from those drivers behind. So really good effort from the Canadian, not quite enough. And then Mazepin rounds out those who managed to put a lap in. Pretty disappointing one to finish there in the 1 minute 31s. About 5/10 slower than Latifi. Well, that's certainly a bit of a struggle for Nikita Mazepin. Vettel, Raikkonen, Alonso and Tsunoda all didn't set a time thanks to mechanical failures. That means that we are only going to have a chance of just me in the Q3. Now, it's going to make it difficult for the championship fight against Mercedes too. Alpine are going to be frustrated in their fight against Aston Martin, but of course Aston Martin have the exact same problem with Vettel being out, and then of course his last quali session in F1, and they are also joined by Kimi Raikkonen, who is out. So in Q1 we lose Nicholas Latifi, Nikita Mazepin, and then those who didn't set a time: Vettel, Raikkonen, Alonso and Tsunoda. And that has been one of the most strange qualifying sessions, if not the most strange qualifying sessions I've seen on the F1 game. So time to move on to Q2 and see if that brings the same amount of drama. Hopefully Q2 might be a little bit less dramatic than Q1 was, and we might be able to comfortably go through. Question is though, what tyres are we going to go for? Max Verstappen out on the soft compound of tyres. Really, I'm thinking mostly about what tyres maybe like Checo's going to go on. I mean, that's an interesting strategy from Verstappen on the softs. I mean, they are a durable tyre because we only got 7% wear on them. But of course, that's a very durable tyre with the mediums. They're a lot slower, but we don't really need that. We've got that extra second to being in a position where we might have to fight a little bit harder to be able to get through. We really do have that pace, and a lot of drivers on the softs. That includes Verstappen, Hamilton, Gasly, Ocon. I'll have to wait and see in a second who else is going to come out, because I don't know whether to go for the softs or for the mediums, of course, in this one. I think we might go for the mediums. I think we might try something different. It is going to start to become night time in a minute or two. Not too long, of course. 5 minutes time, it will be dark, which you've got to love. There's a question whether maybe when we've made our decision, we go out in a few minutes after that, so we can sort of race into the sunset. Max Verstappen, though, on the softs. Hamilton on the softs. Russell on the softs. That is Bottas on the softs. Giovinazzi on the softs. Ricciardo on the softs. Gasly on the softs. Leclerc on the softs. Ocon on the softs. Everyone is out on the softs pretty much, and I think we're going to have to do the same. Little bit frustrating, to be honest with you. Didn't particularly want to have to go on the softs. I actually want to do the mediums, but if everyone else is going for softs, I don't think it's worth the risk. I haven't really done many races around here at Cheddar, so I don't exactly know how the strategy is going to be. Perez is on the softs. We might as well go for the softs ourselves. We're going to head out once it's started to calm down a little bit so we don't get held up, and as the sun begins to set here in Jeddah. Have to say, a bit of a weird time to be heading out for Q2, of course, sort of in the middle of the session as those sort of late runners are coming back into the pits to get some fresh tyres on, cool down the car, and then of course be able to go again at the end of this session. But on the softs, of course, instead of the mediums, means that we don't have to have something incredible. So a mistake or two, a little bit of oversteer potentially somewhere, something like that we correct, or having to lift a little bit more potentially. We don't have to do anything extremely risky at this stage, and as I say that, we were having a fantastic lap until that happened. Didn't really gain us time because we had a massive slide on the exit, but a very decent start to this session. And now hook it tight on exit, maybe. Got to be nice and smooth on the throttle, but no surprise to see Schumacher as the slowest of those running. Of course, he is in the Haas at the moment, so not really a surprise. Wonder if we'll get a different seat for next season, but we've got the whole track to ourselves. Got to love that. Giovinazzi then next, it's then Schwartzman, and a really great lap so far put on the board from George Russell, because that has put him P12. Now that would be a very decent position to qualify. Of course, this helped by plenty of drivers having some mechanical disasters, but this has been a very, very smooth lap, and I'm going to be pretty happy to cleanly and calmly finish it off here, not bang the rear into the wall on the exits, and this should be comfortably enough to get us through to Q3. And it is Hamilton and Bottas ahead of Perez and Verstappen, and now with this being the tyre we're going to start the race on, we want to carefully nurse it home. Only 3% tyre wear, so we should be pretty much all right, but that is pretty interesting. I've got to say, the sun not setting just yet. It is beginning to, but we're not heading into darkness. I was hoping we'd maybe have a beautiful sort of light to dark Q2 run. Looks like we'll have to potentially have gone out a bit later for that, but we are now safe and can return to the pits. There certainly is not long left in this session, so I'll have a very, very quick rundown of the order. We have put in an absolute banger of a lap, a 1 minute 27.1, something I'd be very happy with if that was in Q3. Probably won't go as quickly as that there, of course, but massively quicker than both Mercedes. Hamilton ahead of Bottas. Very close there between those two. And then very close between the Red Bulls. Perez ahead of Verstappen. You've then got the Ferraris and the McLarens. It's Charles Leclerc ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, with Sainz ahead of Norris. Interesting one to see Ricciardo P7. He's struggled in that bunch a bit so far this season, but those guys are all safe. Pretty much, no, not really. It's actually very close in this bunch, but actually the top 10 shouldn't need to go again, because the gap to the likes of Lance Stroll and Ocon is massive. Here's Pierre Gasly, P10, doing fantastically well, considering he's in that AlphaTauri, to be right on the back of the McLaren Ferrari bunch. Looking further down the field then, we have Pierre Gasly's teammate Lance Stroll looking to get eliminated in Q2. He won't want that. It's looking rather likely at this point. The Canadian again struggling from low focus, quite a bit behind his teammate. He's then followed by Esteban Ocon, P12. He'd be very happy with that. Ever gaining confidence in that Alpine, running well in quali so far. Then we have, of course, got George Russell, P13 for Williams. That would be a very good result for him. Mr. Saturday going well, but still going to have to fend off Robert Schwartzman. He'll be looking for something better in his Aston Martin. Can certainly do better than that. He'll be hoping for something a little bit more. And then a decent lap from Antonio Giovinazzi to put in P15. He's ahead of Mick Schumacher, who is last. No real surprises with him in that house, but everyone is pretty much going again from Charles Leclerc down. I think we might have... Oh, and also Checo Perez. Don't really know why, but we might as well now have a look at the results. Interesting indeed as the darkness starts to roll over the Jeddah Street circuit. Some drivers have gone, and Checo Perez went again, showed some decent pace there. Very decent pace. 1 minute 27.851 in terms of your changes in the order. Some drivers opted to go again. That was both McLarens, both Ferraris, and Sergio Perez. Interesting choices to go again, but they went again. And this is the result of that. Checo Perez went again, managed to take P2. We are still quicker than him this week and absolutely flying around the Jeddah Corniche circuit for ourselves. So we are P1, 1 minute 27.196. Perez went again. That could be pivotal when it gets to P3, Q3 in, of course, a little while. When you get to Q3, that could be pivotal. Maybe one less set of tyres for him. Then Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo for McLaren. The McLaren's looking really strong. Those two went again, P3 and P4. Norris ahead of Ricciardo. No real surprises there, but it's the fact they're quicker than Ferrari. To be honest, it's so close in this gaggle of cars that any of these 9 could be in any sort of an order. I think we're definitely going to be towards the top end with the sort of quality that's we're putting in at the moment, but McLaren, both McLaren drivers, Norris and Ricciardo, ahead of both Ferrari drivers, but of course, it keeps swapping around all over the place. It's really going to come down to Q3. Of course, Carlos Sainz comes to be ahead of his teammate in terms of positions. He is P5, managed to go quicker than the 2 Mercs. Of course, having an extra lap out on track, probably with cooler track temperatures. That certainly helps, but Carlos showing he's got decent pace in that Ferrari compared to his teammate, who was pretty close to him, but about a couple of tenths off, in fact, down in P8. In terms of the 2 Mercedes, Hamilton leading, Bottas, those two pretty much inseparable in terms of their lap times. That's P6 and P7. They're looking pretty strong heading into Q3. Verstappen didn't go again. That's why he's P9, but to say he's just behind Charles Leclerc by a thousandth when he did one less lap is pretty solid. He'll just be hoping to get closer to the Mercs, though. Maybe give his teammate Checo a bit of a tow in Q3. Then Gasly makes it through. Can't really get into the mix with the McLarens and the Ferraris, but only 3/10 off Charles Leclerc in a much slower car. So another great performance from Pierre Gasly. But we do lose these drivers, these 6 drivers, and that is a very interesting order there, I've got to say. Shuffled around a little bit. Lance Stroll still P11. He'll be pretty happy with that. Don't forget he's got that 5-place grid penalty. Guessing that was for a component change. But P11, I think that's pretty decent for him, really, to say the least. Actually, that's a really good result for Lance despite the low focus. Still getting decent results in quali. P11, he is out in Q2. However, certainly got to be happy with that. Going to drop down 5 places, but I'm sure others will also have some component changes heading into this weekend. Then George Russell, P12 for Williams. A lovely result from Mr. Saturday there. I've got to say that Williams is catching on the rest of the cars, but it's still very uncompetitive. So from George, that is a beautiful lap, I've got to say. P12 in that Williams, that's Mr. Saturday for you. Probably his best quality result of the season, and I know a lot of drivers aren't managing to compete at it, but you still can't take P12 away from George in a Williams. A fantastic Q2 result there from him. Ocon dropped a place down to P13. Still a decent quality. Would have hoped for a bit more for him and Alpine in the battle against Aston Martin. They need points this weekend, and he's not really that close to it, but still gaining more confidence in the car, and a solid result just behind George in another blue car. Then, looking further down those who are eliminated, Antonio Giovinazzi gained a position up to P14. Great result in that Alpha. Not the quickest of cars, so a solid drive from the Italian in qualifying to be P14. Quite a bit off Ocon in the Alpine. 6/10 the gap there, but does manage to get ahead of a faster Aston Martin, driven by Robert Schwartzman, maybe struggling a bit more towards the end of Q2. They're down to P15. Bit of a shame for him. Not where you want to start when you're in a very decent car this weekend, right in the midfield, and you've qualified ahead of just 3 other drivers who have set times. Bit disappointing for Robert. Not really managing to get great results in F1, I've got to say. Then Mick Schumacher, P16 for Haas. A bit disappointed maybe that he couldn't get closer. Of course, 6/10 off Robert Schwartzman. and how far, of course, he was off George Russell is a bit of a shame, but still a great achievement to make it through to Q2. And I know only the other two drivers set lap times below him, but still, can't take it away from him. A good Q2 appearance, just not finding the pace in the Haas, and that Haas has just not got the pace. So, interesting for Q3, I've got to say, pretty much anyone's in it. It probably is going to be ourselves versus the Red Bulls versus the Mercs for pole, and the McLarens and Ferraris fighting behind, maybe getting into the mix a bit with a couple of the Mercs and Red Bulls that don't really get the sort of result they want, and then I'm guessing Gasly will be probably P8, 9 or 10, could maybe get into the mix there. But we do lose Lance Stroll in P11 for AlphaTauri. We then lose George Russell, Mr. Saturday, with a great result for Williams, followed by Frenchman Esteban Ocon, then Antonio Giovinazzi for Alfa Romeo, Robert Schwartzman for Aston Martin, and Mick Schumacher for Haas. That's both Haas's now knocked out, both Aston Martin's now knocked out, both Alfa Romeo's now knocked out, both Alpine's now knocked out, both Williams now knocked out, and we have one AlphaTauri knocks out. A slightly calmer Q2, still very interesting, but now it is time for Q3, the final Q3 of the season. Rather strangely, this seems to be classed as nighttime here in Jeddah. Doesn't look very dark. It is supposed to be nighttime, but the sun's still slowly descending on us, getting a bit darker. But anyway, into Q3, of course. No real time for an introduction. You've got to get straight into your lap times. Hopefully, we'll be able to put something decent in. Heading into turn 1. Always, I think, possibly the trickiest section of the track to get right, especially being at the start. Not an easy little chicane there. Then heading through here. Sector 1, very technical. As you can see there, ourselves making a bit of a mistake, getting a little warning for that. Sorry, FIA, didn't mean to annoy the stewards there with that. Let's see if we can hook it up nicely through here. And actually, that is pretty clean through that part of the lap. A decent sector 1 to begin with. Then heading into the hairpin. In sector 2, you've got a good amount of banking. Got to love that. Mike Zandvoort works really fantastically well through there. Now, into this complex section on the throttle really early on the exit. Nicely through there as we chase onto the Merc in front. Interesting to see, because actually one of the Red Bulls hasn't gone out. That might be Checo Perez. Only one run left for him, maybe in Q3, as we make that same mistake. I think I've made a couple of times in practice. But Lewis Hamilton, 1 minute 28.1. That's not going to be that competitive. You do a bit better than that. We did make a mistake at the start of sector 3. But now, into the final corner. Just want to make it through here nicely. Keep it close to the wall on exit. And now, I'm going to round out the lap. Bottas, 28.1. Ourselves, 28.0. Just quicker. I've got to say, only just quicker. Charles Leclerc, 27.8. The man who I am thinking of as my potential teammate for next season has rocked up onto the scene and put in a fantastic lap there, to say the least. Absolutely beauty. What an absolute beauty of a lap that must be to get that sort of a lap time, and Ricciardo's just gone P2. Ferrari and McLaren just absolutely spoiling this party, and I'm loving it. And Verstappen's gone P2 now. Bottas and Hamilton, really far down the order, were P4 after dominating both Q1 and Q2, but we are going again here. Then we're going to return to the pits, get a fresh set of tyres, and go again. We're throwing the laps in here at Jeddah. I know I can go quicker this lap, and if we can get this nicely done through here, we're not going to be costing ourselves too much. Look at that. So clean through there. That's what cost us. And now the lap time is going to come flooding in. We should be able to top Charles Leclerc at the top of the charts. Valtteri Bottas heading slowly through here. And I think he's trying to slow us down a little bit there. Come on, AI, need to move out of the way in next year's game, please. When I'm on a flyer, you're going to enter the pits. And we are going to cross the line. Look at that, 27.1. And that is a fantastic lap, I've got to say. Look at that. He won. Pretty dominant here in Jeddah, I've got to say. Really, really are. Head of Leclerc, Verstappen, Ricciardo and Bottas. That's 5 different teams in the top 5. Now we've got to go and return to the pits for a fresh set of tyres. We are now heading on to our last lap in this session. I do believe we're being chased down by 2 Mercs and a Red Bull. Perez did decide to go out and do a lap, I do believe. He decided to go out a bit later. Didn't manage anything too fantastic. We are now beginning our final lap in this session. Can we put something decent in? I think the AI did decide to go out a bit earlier than me, and I think they're sort of doing their laps now. I don't know if they're doing an extra prep lap before that, but we are now foot to the floor in the first sector, seeing how much we can push it against the AI. Qualifying complete. We should be safe for pole here, but we have got to do something decent. Purple sector 1. We are going big here, I'm not kidding. We are going to go for what could be the biggest lead we've had in qualifying over the AI in this career mode. That is the plan. Now, foot to the floor. Can we push a little further? The AlphaTauri Pierre Gasly not opting to go out. This will be a very interesting front row for myself alongside Charles Leclerc. Gotta say, that is a very, very interesting front row. Wasn't expecting Ferrari to be so close to the top in Q3 at the business end of things, but now not the best in sector 3. But if we can round out the lap nicely, there's no Valtteri Bottas in a Mercedes to hold us up. We're going to come home to cross the line. We're going to go even quicker and take pole at the season finale. Well, look at this order. It is very, very interesting. 5 different teams in the top 5, 5 different teams in the bottom 5. Very, very spread field, and it is quite pivotal for the championship because we are P1 with a 1 minute 26, 8.18 to finish there, a whole second quicker than Leclerc in his Ferrari. First time we've been fantastically dominant in qualifying this season, but we are ahead of Charles in that Ferrari, and that is a fantastic result for him. Let's not forget, in terms of the fight in the drivers, the sort of the best of the rest fight behind myself, the Red Bulls and the Mercs, and he is currently 3rd in that fight. If he can get a fantastic result this weekend, especially when he's starting P2 on the grid, you never know, but it could potentially put him right into the top of that group, and he is just ahead of Verstappen in his Red Bull. A solid lap from him puts him P3, a lot better than his teammate and Bottas and Hamilton. So, of course, with the battle with Hamilton for P3 in the standings at the end of the season, he could potentially make decent inroads on that. You don't know, but P3, a good quality result for Max Verstappen, and P4, a fantastic quality result for Daniel Ricciardo. He has really struggled this season compared to his teammate, but today he is on top with a top 4 finish, ahead of both Mercedes and the highest place, Mercedes-powered car in the whole field. A fantastic result from the Australian. You love to see it. You really do. Great work from Danny Rick. And of course, P4 in his McLaren. Ahead of both Mercs, Bottas and Hamilton are not going to be happy with that. Let's not forget that we are in a battle with them in the Constructors, and if we do manage to get a win, and they finish towards the bottom of the top 10, there's still a chance that we could overtake them. They need to finish quite far down, but Bottas ahead of Hamilton, generally that's what we've seen with the pace. With the not having mechanical failure issues, it's been Hamilton. But of course, Bottas quicker than Hamilton. Those two, though, quite far down the order. Got to be a bit disappointed with that. Yes, they are ahead of Perez. They're also behind Max Verstappen, though, and isn't the most fantastic of results. But those two closely followed by Carlos Sainz in his Ferrari. Couldn't exactly pull off what his teammate managed, but only 4 tenths behind. A solid quality result from Carlos. He's looking to fight up a bit in the championship order, so he needs some good points. And P7 is going to be a decent foundation to start from for the race. But the pivotal result, Checo Perez, it's all gone wrong for him in Q3. Only manages P8. He needed to be about where his teammate was, but instead ended up at the bottom of the top 10. He needs to finish ahead of us tomorrow, and needs to finish ahead of us by 7 points, which is quite a lot because, you know, that's like him winning and us finishing P2. Any other one place gap, him being directly ahead of us, isn't going to be big enough. He's going to need a stunner of a race for him and a disaster of a race for ourselves. And that's pretty unlikely. So for Perez, it's looking like it's not going to be the championship dream. It could be coming to ours. Can't say it too early. But of course, P8, a really disappointing quality. A 1 minute 28.2. He went out in the middle of the session, in a sense, and then just got back into the pits quick enough to go and put another set of tyres, I do believe it was on, to then go again, I think. So really not entirely sure what that run strategy was. A bit unorthodox and didn't pay off there at all. P8 for him, and he's at Lando Norris, who has really struggled. McLaren were looking a bit better than they have performed, I feel, in Q3 and Q2, of course, look really, really strong. But for Lando, it's a little bit frustrating for him. He's quite a way behind Leclerc, which is quite pivotal for the championship. Behind Sainz, pivotal for the championship. His teammate, pivotal for the championship. And really, a bit disappointing as a way to start the end of the season for Lando. Only P9 in quali. He's followed by Pierre Gasly for AlphaTauri. No surprises seeing him at the back of the top 10 with quite an uncompetitive AlphaTauri these days. Whole 2 seconds off ourselves. But I have to say, when looking at the order, P2 to P8 is separated by under... In fact, actually, P2 to P9 separated by under half a second. It is so close in that bunch. We have got a pretty comfortable lead of a second, and we do go really well around here in quali. Don't know how we'll go in the race, but we have got that massive lead. Because we've got that massive lead, we stand a really good chance in the race tomorrow of getting a fantastic result, because we are so much quicker. But the battle behind is going to be absolutely fantastic. It really, really is. Charles Leclerc up there in P2. His teammate Sainz will be looking to fight up to him in P7. McLaren need to beat Ferrari this weekend to stay ahead of them in the standings. Ferrari needs to beat McLaren to get ahead of them in the standings. Of course, Ricciardo P4. He'll be looking for a great result. Norris, he'll be looking to climb up the order. We look at Red Bull. Verstappen will be looking to stay in the top 3 to finish off the season well. Try and finish ahead of Lewis Hamilton by quite a chunk to get that P3 in the championship. Meanwhile, Checo Perez is in a championship fight with us. He has to finish ahead by 7 points. Then, you of course got Gasly. He'd love a fantastic way to finish the season. It is all to play for. And then, of course, the Mercs, they're going to want something decent, especially Hamilton wants to fight with Verstappen for P3. Bottas is just hoping to finish off his season well after some bad luck. But that is your result in Q3. Ourselves with 1 minute 26.8. Whole second ahead of Charles Leclerc. Then it's Max Verstappen, Ricciardo, Bottas, Hamilton, Sainz, Perez, Norris, Gasly, rounding out the top 10. A very interesting spread. Dominance from ourselves. But what a way to set up the season finale race. Watch out for that video. If you guys have enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. But watch out for that video coming up soon. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll catch you next time in this series when we move on to the final race of the season, when the championship battle between myself and Perez continues.